Hello, welcome back, readers. We are reading Because of Winn-Dixie. We are on chapter 18, and I just lost my spot. And we just learned about the litmus lozenges, and we're trying to figure out who Carson is that Amanda knows, so maybe we'll find out today. Chapter 18. When we got to Gloria Dump's, I told her I had 2 surprises for her, and I asked her which one did she want first, the small one or the big one? The small one, said Gloria. I handed her the litmus lozenge, and she moved it around her hand, feeling it. Candy, she said. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It's called a litmus lozenge. Oh, Lord, yes, I remember these candies. My daddy used to eat them. She unwrapped the litmus lozenge and put it in her mouth and nodded her head. Do you like it? I asked her. She nodded, her head slowly. It tastes so sweet, but it also tastes like people are leaving. You mean sad? I asked. Does it taste like sorrow to you? That's right, she said. It tastes sourful, but sweet. Now, what's surprise number 2? A book, I said. A book? Uh-huh, I said. I'm going to read it out loud to you. It's called Gone with the Wind. Miss Franny says it's a great book. It's about the Civil War. Do you know all about the Civil War? I've heard it mentioned a time or two, she said, nodding her head and sucking on her litmus lozenge. It's going to take us a long time to read this book, I told her. There are 1,037 pages. Woo-wee, said Gloria. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her hands on her stomach. We best get started then. And so I read the first chapter of Gone with the Wind out loud to Gloria Dump. I read it loud enough to keep her ghosts away, and Gloria listened to it good. And then when I was done, she said it was the best surprise she had ever had, and she couldn't wait to hear chapter 2. That night, I gave the preacher a litmus lozenge right before he'd kiss me goodnight. What is this? He said. It's a candy that Miss Franny's great-grandfather invented. It's called a litmus lozenge. The preacher unwrapped it and put it in his mouth, and after a minute he started rubbing his nose and nodding his head. Do you like it? I asked him. It has a peculiar flavor. Root beer, I said. Something else. Strawberry? That too, but there's still something else. It's odd. I could see the preacher getting further and further away, and he was hunched up in his shoulders and lowering his chin and getting ready to pull his head back in that shell. It almost tastes like melancholy, he said. Melancholy? What's that? Sad, said the preacher. He rubbed his nose some more. Makes me think of your mother. Winn-Dixie sniffed at the candy wrapper in the preacher's hand. It tastes so sad, he said, and he sighed. Must be a bad batch. No, I told him. I sat up in bed. That's the way it's supposed to taste. Litmus came back from the war, and his whole family was dead. His daddy had died fighting, and his mama and his sisters died from disease, and the Yankees burned his house down. And Litmus was very sad, and what he wanted more than anything in the whole world was something sweet. So he built a candy factory and made litmus lozenges. And he put all the sad he was feeling into the candy. Oh, my goodness, said the preacher. Winn-Dixie sniffed the candy wrapper out of the preacher's hand and started chewing on it. Gimme that, I had said to Winn-Dixie, but he wouldn't give it up. I had to reach inside his mouth to pull it out. You can't eat candy wrappers, I told him. Preacher cleared his throat, and I thought he was going to say something important. Maybe tell me another thing that he remembered about my mama. But what he said was, Opal, I had a talk with Mrs. Dewberry the other day. She said that Stevie says that you call him a bald-headed baby. It's true, I said. I did. But he calls Gloria Dump a witch all the time, and he calls Otis retarded. And once he even said that his mama and I shouldn't be spending all my time with these old ladies. That's what he said. I think you should apologize, said the preacher. Me? I said. Yes, he said. And you tell Stevie that you were sorry if you said anything that hurt his feelings. I'm sure he just wants to be your friend. I don't think so, I told him. I don't think he wants to be my friend. Some people have a strange way about going out about making friends, he said. You apologize. Yes, sir, I said. Then I remembered Carson. Daddy, I said, do you know anything about Amanda Wilkinson? What kinds of things? Do you know something about her and some boy named Carson? Carson was her brother. He drowned last year. He's dead? Yes, said the preacher. His family is still suffering a great deal. How old was he? 5, said the preacher. He was only 5 years old. Daddy, I said, how could you not tell me about something like that? Other people's tragedies should not be a subject of idle conversation. There is no reason for me to tell you. It's just that I needed to know, I said, because it helps me explain Amanda. No wonder why she's so pinch-faced. What's that? The preacher said. Nothing, I said. Good night, Opal, said the preacher, and he leaned over and he kissed her, and he smelled like root beer and strawberry, and all the sadness mixed together in his breath. He patted Winn-Dixie on the head and got up and turned off the light and closed the door. I didn't go to sleep right away. I laid there and thought how life was like a litmus lozenge, how sweet it was and how sad was all mixed together, and how hard it was for us to separate them out. It was confusing. Daddy, I shouted. After a minute, he opened the door and raised eyebrows at me. What was that word that you used? That word that meant sad? Melancholy, he said. Melancholy, I repeated. I liked the way it sounded, like there was hidden music in it on the inside. Good night now, said the preacher. Good night, I told him back. I got up out of bed and unwrapped a litmus lozenge, and I sucked on it hard, and I thought about Mama leaving. It was that melancholy feeling. And then I thought about Amanda and Carson, and that made me feel melancholy too. Poor Amanda, and poor Carson. He was the same age as Sweetie Pie, but he would never get to have his 6th birthday. I think, 19 short. Chapter 19. In the morning, me and Winn-Dixie went down to sweep the pet store, and I took a litmus lozenge for Otis. Is it Halloween? Otis asked when I handed him the candy. No, I said, why? Well, you're giving me candy. It's just a gift, I told him, just for today. Oh, said Otis, and he unwrapped the litmus lozenge and put it in his mouth. After a minute, tears started rolling down his face. Thank you, he said. Did you like it? I asked him. He nodded his head. It tastes so good, but it also tastes a little bit like being in jail. Gertrude, Gertrude squawked, and she picked up the litmus lozenge wrapper in her beak and dropped it and looked around. Gertrude, she screamed again. You can't have any, I told her. It's not for birds. Then real quick, before I lost my nerve, I said, Otis, what were you in jail for? Are you a murderer? No, ma'am, he said. Are you a burglar? No, ma'am, Otis said. He sucked on his candy and stared down at his pointy-toed boots. You don't have to tell me. I was just wondering, I said. I ain't a dangerous man, Otis said, if that's what you're thinking. I'm lonely, but I ain't dangerous. Okay, I said. And then I went back to the back room to get my broom. When I came out, Otis was standing there where I left him, staring down at his feet. It was the account of the music, he said. What was? I asked. Why I went to jail. It was the account of the music. What happened? I wouldn't stop playing my guitar. Used to be I played it on the streets, and sometimes people would give me money. I didn't do it for money. I did it because the music was better if some people had something to listen to. Anyways, the police came. They told me to stop. They said that I was breaking the law, and the whole time they were talking to me, I just kept playing my music. And that made them mad. They tried to handcuff me. He sighed. I didn't like that. I wouldn't have been able to play my guitar with them things on. And then what happened? I asked him. I hit them, he whispered. You hit the police? Uh-huh. One of them. I knocked him out. Then I went to jail. And they locked me up. And they wouldn't let me have my guitar. And then when they finally let me out, they made me promise that I would never play my guitar on the streets again. He looked up at me real quick and then back down to his boots. And I don't. I only play in here for the animals. Gertrude, the human Gertrude, she owns the shop. She gave me this job when she read about me in the paper, and she said it's all right for me to play music for the animals. You play your music for me and Winn-Dixie and Sweetie Pie, I said. Yeah, he agreed. But you ain't on the streets. Thank you for telling me about that, Otis, I said. It's all right, he said. I don't mind. Sweetie Pie came in, and I gave her a litmus lozenge, and she spit it right out. She said it tasted bad. She said it tastes like it was not having a dog. I swept the floor real slow that day. I wanted to keep Otis company. I didn't want him to be lonely. Sometimes it seems like everybody in the world was lonely. I thought about Mama. Thinking about her was the same as the hole you kept on feeling with your tongue after you lose a tooth. Time and time, my mind kept going to that empty cart, or the empty spot, the spot where it felt like she should be. Okay, so today, again, I just wanted you to listen because we have to finish the book this week. So go ahead and read your own book for 20 to 30 minutes, all right? We'll see you next time.